Thank you. My name is Rob Wood. I am a tax lawyer here in San Francisco. I will apologize to all of you. I speak no Italian. I do, however, speak one foreign language, and that is tax. International language, I guess you could say. I want to compliment Giuseppe and Sara for putting this PowerPoint, this packet of materials together. It actually is quite good, and it may be a little overwhelming to all of you, but it's good. It's a lot of good material here. I brought with me and handed out, it's not anywhere near as good, but I brought a few of my Forbes columns just printed out. There are many more. If you go to Forbes.com and type in my name and hit search, or especially if you type in my name and hit foreign accounts or FBARs or something like that, you'll see a lot of them. You'll see they're very repetitive. As Giuseppe said, a lot of these rules they may be unfair, but they're actually pretty simple. It sort of complying or deciding how you are going to, if you are not doing all these things currently, how you are going to start doing them. That's the hard part. So, and it's obviously very fact specific. And I guess before I continue, is there somebody from the Internal Revenue Service here, a liaison officer? I'm not trying to make a joke. It's actually, I was told there would be someone here. If there's a liaison officer here, apparently none of you is willing to admit that you actually work for the Internal Revenue Service. I mean, they have a job to do, and if there is a liaison officer here, I was going to invite him or her to say a few words. I want to go back to something Giuseppe said, which is that most of these rules haven't changed. Now, the level of compliance and the level of scrutiny has changed enormously. I mean, hugely in the last few years. I've been a tax lawyer for 32 years now, and I think until maybe 5 years ago, had never heard of an FBAR. I mean, I literally had never heard of it. I mean, the tax code, as Mike said, is huge volume of pages and words and concepts, extremely complicated, by far the most complicated tax system in the world. I do some work. I'm admitted to practice in the UK. I do a little work there, and their system is very simple by comparison to ours. I'm not sure about Italy's, but I would guess that Italy's tax system is probably a very simple compared to the US system. However, most of these rules, again, have been in effect for many, many years. The FBAR rules came into effect in 1970. They were designed as money laundering rules that were to sort of ferret out people that were doing things with banking they shouldn't be doing. But now all these rules apply to all of us. Any U.S. person, as Giuseppe described, it's very broadly defined. Any green card holder, any U.S. citizen, and I think the harder category is the people who aren't permanent residents based on a green card or citizenship. They're not citizens, but have been here for a while on some other kind of visa, or are filing a U.S. tax return, and it's a little more complicated category. But the FATCA rules, which both the Consul General and Mike and Giuseppe referred to, FATCA is the new law, not so new, enacted in 2010, pretty quietly. But there was a huge backlash for a while about repealing it. My own belief right now is that repeal is highly, highly unlikely. I think you can forget about it, honestly, about repealing FATCA. Many countries, including Italy, France, England, and so on, a number of European countries have already entered into pacts with the United States. So you sort of unfortunately have to move beyond arguing about whether it's unfair, because we're really stuck with it.
So,
Yeah.
could you please say what these intergovernmental agreements entail?
Yeah, thank you. So as I understand it, very roughly, and in some cases, they're not telling you exactly what the intergovernmental agreements are. They're sort of agreements to agree later, or agreements to cooperate. But essentially, the governments, including the United States, which obviously is doing the pushing on this, and the United States, because of its problems with the UBS and the other institutions, primarily in Switzerland, but now really everywhere, they're trying to make sure that U.S. persons, regardless of whether they were born in the U.S. or subsequently became a U.S. person, that they're reporting worldwide income. So all the governments, including the government of Italy, have agreed that they will exchange information about any U.S. person. I commonly get a question from clients about what if they are a U.S. person, but they have another passport and they have a bank account in X country, and that bank does not know they're a U.S. person. Are they at risk? And the answer is yes, probably not as much at risk as if the bank knows that they are a U.S. person, but it's sort of a thin reed upon which to rely. But the FATCA law really didn't change the U.S. worldwide reporting, as Mike or Giuseppe or both said. Didn't change that. Didn't change the FBAR rules, which have been in effect since 1970, and they're now. I can assure you, the FBAR rules are now enforced. You have to file them, but the penalties are quite severe. But FATCA said the governments are going to exchange information, and institutions are going to exchange information, and they are going to report on you if you don't tell them you're American.
Can we just drill down a little bit into that? So does it mean that banks, through their local central banks or other national institutions, will do a data dump of individuals that supposedly are U.S. persons, package them up, ship them out to Washington, D.C.? Is that what the treaty says?
I think so. I mean, I'm in some cases.
Record, so that we should be able to read this treaty.
Yes.
Yeah, but in some cases, I think there aren't treaties yet. I think
Only the UK signed.
Okay,
Only
that's
UK.
right. Thanks, Sarah. But so I think for Italy, I don't think there is one yet. There is an agreement to agree or an agreement to cooperate. So what I don't know about the Italian banks, but what banks in many other countries, I don't know, I can think of at least a dozen countries that I've seen personally that are doing this. The banks are, and maybe this has probably happened to some of you, the banks are going to the U.S. account holders and saying, I'm sorry, you're a U.S. account person, we have this new FATCA law we have to comply with, we need you to declare to the U.S. government and then certify to us that you are doing all the things you're supposed to do, otherwise we do not want you anymore, or something like that. And I think so in other words, they are jettisoning U.S. Persons, regardless of what other country affiliation you may have. But the writing is on the wall that if they are not already doing the data dump that you described, they will be doing it. And I think, and the IRS, for its part, has said, as recently as within the last month, that U.S. persons should not count on the kind of UBS model that happened. I represented a number of UBS account holders in, say, 2008 and 9, and currently, who were told by UBS, I'm sorry, but we are disclosing your name. You're a big account holder. We're being indicted. We have all this pressure from the IRS. We're telling you we're giving your name to the IRS. And so most of those people had a month or so of advance, some cases more, advance notice. They could run to the IRS, which most of them did, wisely, and say, oh gosh, I want to disclose this and fix it and pay the penalties, whatever they are, and the amnesty, which Giuseppe or Mike or both mentioned, and there still is a program in effect. As long as you get to the IRS before they get to you, it's fine. I mean, you pay something, and we can talk specifically about what that something is, but which is not a laughing matter. But I think the data dump you're describing is going to happen. Okay, so I don't want to get too off track. So I guess I'm here to try to answer questions. Just to go back briefly, I think the easy part is to say you're supposed to report worldwide income, and I think Giuseppe did a very good job of saying, it's very complicated, but a lot of the nuances are very complicated. The PFIC rules, about foreign mutual funds, I mean, that's true, but all of it is a lot easier than you might think it is. And frankly, all of the FBAR reporting, if you were to today go and download an FBAR form, a lot of my Forbes articles, I know, link to the FBAR form. It's on the IRS website, you can get it. By the way, I'm also commonly asked, does the IRS track you if you go onto their website and look about foreign accounts? And as a serious question, I'm asked this. And my answer is no, they don't. Yet. No, and with all due respect to anybody who does work for the IRS in the audience, and the IRS doesn't have the technical ability to be able to do that, even if they wanted to do that. So you can get all this. They want you to comply. They want you to learn about it. It's not something you can do overnight. But if you go and get an FBAR form, it's not that difficult to fill out. And it's not a tax form. It's a disclosure form. You say, I have this account at this bank, that account at that bank, and you list them, and then you file these forms. You file it annually. It's different from tax returns. They're pretty easy to do. The difficult part is if you haven't been doing it, do you just start tomorrow doing it, or do you go retroactive? And those things you really need to talk to someone about, I think, confidential. You know what I'm trying to say, confidentially. Thank you. I was trying to speak Italian there for a moment. A word about how dangerous is all this. I don't know. I think it's dangerous. I can tell you that I'm representing lots of people. Certainly, I've been through the voluntary disclosure process, the IRS programs for, at this point, close to 100 people. They generally go really smoothly. Getting the information sometimes is difficult. For example, for people who have U.S. persons that have lived here for a long time and know that they're not supposed to have, for example, Swiss bank accounts, and so they don't have any documents, period. So UBS had a hotline 24 hours a day. You could get bank statements. I mean, they were doing this sort of as a land office business. I don't know what the Italian equivalent of land office business is, but they were doing a lot of it.
Very well organized.
Very well organized, yeah. So I would say if you want to do it, complying is not that difficult. Speaking to an accountant, I think, is fine. However, there is criminal exposure here. I have 2 clients currently facing one of whom is already been charged, has criminal charges pending. We're trying to work through. The other of whom is under criminal investigation that we already know about, and so we're trying to, seek a path through that. I can tell you that it's not something you want to wish on anybody. It's not like some other countries where criminal tax charges are, sort of pay a fine and it goes away. In the U.S., it's taken pretty seriously. Probably none of you in this room is the sort of person that the IRS really wants to make an example of. But you don't want to take the chance. So be careful, I think, when you get advice. If you are going to do something that is less than perfect, you probably want to see a lawyer. The common thing, and I think I've described this to some of my fellow panelists here, the common thing that's done in this circumstance, if you are trying to sort of get your system to figure out how you're going to comply for the past or going forward, is to have a lawyer hire the accountant instead of you hiring an accountant directly. In the U.S., this is called a COVEL, K-O-V-E-L agreement. It is, again, if you go on the internet and type in COVEL agreement, K-O-V-E-L, it's based on a case, a U.S. tax case about 50 years ago. And it says that there is attorney-client privilege if the accountant is a subcontractor of the lawyer. Attorney-client privilege is important because you do not want to have the IRS come to your door and say, where are all your bank statements? Or, I want to interview you, and just to honestly tell you a horror story, that the one client I have who's been criminally charged, thought he's not born in the U.S., now a U.S. citizen, but was trying to clear it up, was trying to do the right thing, invited the IRS criminal investigation agents in, interviewed with them, talked to them, said some things that he shouldn't have said, and they're using the statements against him. He should have said, I'm sorry, I really would rather not talk to you. Why don't I take your business card and I'll have my lawyer call you. So if you get in that, I'm sure I'm frightening some of you, I don't mean to. If you get in that circumstance, that's what I'd advise you to do.